I was the thrilled one to not only have December examiner poems. Can you hear me? No? You can't hear back there? But then to find that the images were going to accompany the poems was really thrilling for me. So a little bit, Chantal Jaffe is a British painter, actually born in this country, but has lived most of her life in Great Britain, in London. And the images are very strange. I found, looked and sort of was put off a little and then came back and looked again. One of the things that's, you can see down here, it's a very large canvas. So a lot of her images are, a lot of her paintings are 10 feet tall. And I've never, unfortunately, been able to see one yet in a museum spot. So that's very frustrating to me because I imagine the experience of actually standing in front of something that's 10 feet tall would be even more inspiring than the images that I have seen, like this one. So I became interested in her as a painter. I read articles about her, looked at photographs where she was up on scaffolding and painting, and became fascinated, and we became correspondents. And she happens to also be very interested in poetry. So the first poem I'm going to read is based on this image titled Mal. Mal, after a painting by Chantal Jaffe. Once there was a girl, small and bright as a crocus in the doldrums of winter or earliest spring. You know them, how they seem to be hiding in snow they push through to be seen. White, violet, involute, the tiny cups that open, emitting perfume strong enough to lure bees from their hives in February or March. Goldilocks, Venus, Joan of Arc, we can't help but name them. This one, the girl with yellow hair, dreamed herself tall. At least that's what the artist mused on a perch high above her studio floor, spattered with petal-shaped pinks and blues. Not pretty, pretty. She'd never meant that. But when she turned to face the canvas face, many times larger than hers, and so close, her plot began to wobble. Who was, when, dissolving, along with her precious metaphor? What had started as a sprig, a slip of, grown nearly 10 feet tall, her creation nested, she could see now, in blades of grass. And climbing down the scaffold of her own girlhood, she's going to fall, going to crush me, she thought. So those blades, sorry. Do you want to put the next slide? So there's another one. I introduced one of my friends to Chantal Jaffe's work, and she said, I really don't like it. I said, but you have to keep thinking about it, don't you? I mean, this image, which is untitled by Chantal Jaffe, and hence then my chrastic response is also untitled. I wrote this poem before I learned that in fact this is Susan Sontag, who was the model for this. But it has nothing to do with my poem whatsoever. Rather, my poem was more of a response to the image of the face that is smeared out in a sense. And I came to write a poem about the recent death of my father. I should mention too that these are actually all prose poems. So very much like what Jen was reading the first time around. They are not lineated. my very first efforts at prose poems. She couldn't look at her father when the undertaker's men carried him away. Later, though, she finds him in a canvas she cannot turn from, face a smudge of ash, shoulders bituminous. And suddenly, she's thinking of dense forests, heatland, how coal is made and mined, the heat it provides. Also soot and smog, acid rain, fire damp, the so-called explosive gases underground, and after damp, vapors that persist once a mine fire is over. Her father, who was he before, when coal trucks still made their rounds? A child who must have watched the delivery man pour down a cellar chute, the lumps that warmed his family's home on Linden. A street shaded with asymmetrical, heart-shaped leaves. Unseen, the spark, the very start. I'm going to read one more poem, but it's a longish poem. It's titled Labyrinth, and it's in 6 sections. Probably most of you are familiar with a labyrinth. But I know when I first started actually walking a labyrinth, which is in West County, and reading about labyrinths, that I had always thought of a labyrinth as a maze. I think because of mythology and the sense of the Minotaur in what was called the labyrinth, which was really a maze, because labyrinths are not places where you get lost. You don't find yourself in sort of, like dead alleys, but rather it's a continuously curvilinear shape. And so when you go in, you can't help but just sort of follow the path and find yourself at the center, a place where often people meditate. And when you leave, you retrace your steps, making that spiral back out. So there are no decisions to be made. And it really does work for many people as a place to sort of feel at peace, or to get to the center, the heart of things in some way, but not maze-like, not frustrating or scary. No Minotaur at the center. A labyrinth. I'm walking the path of a labyrinth, winding in slowly. I've been here for seasons, during early spring when the purple irises bloom, bearded and Siberian. Later too, when the buttery ones that resemble tropical fish appear, fluttering their petals in the wind like fins. In summer's full sun, my shadow moves ahead of me, turning round and round, drawing me on. When it snows, and the stones that mark the way lie buried, I think of the blind, the to and fro of the stick they swing to navigate an uneven walk before them. And so, I use my right foot like a cane, tapping every snowy mound. I wonder what it would be like here at night when the moon is covered with clouds, no flashlight to guide me. Would the pathways in my brain, ingrained over time, lead me as the blind are led some days by a sighted companion? I wish someone would tell me the way through sadness, the anguish I've come here to purge. Forget your intentions, she might say, hush, in a wind voice. And so, trying to quiet the buzz in my mind, I imagine I'm one of those solitary bees that nest underground. 2. They're not here in the flesh, but they don't seem far. I find others in what they've left, rain-drenched, faded, flotsam a mother bird might snatch to build her nest. Strung from the purple ash at the center of the labyrinth, what unravels knots? A red ribbon, a string of worsted yarn fixed to a tarnished silver locket. Inside of it, a face I imagine is someone's son, and his dog tag, name and number. Was this hung in peace or protest? The chain a woman looped around the neck of a branch. I'm amazed by pain that lives apart in the tangible. An object, say, like a scratched gold ring glimpsed through leaves. To what are we wedded? And when, how, if ever, can we rinse ourselves of what adheres to us? I wish I had a charm, a little silver box, for instance, with a tiny latch I'd unfasten to spill the ash each grief has become into the grass, the mum grass. Unlashed, I think, at last. But I've carried nothing, my hands bare as a beggar's. Today comes song, come night, circling my concerns along the way. I find myself where others have arrived, if only a place to rest for a while. How else do we survive? 3. How do we survive the dark of the solstice, the short days of a long winter where nothing harkens? This little I know. The purple ash will be bare before it buds. Nowhere is a word I hear whispered as the world gets colder. Also, prayer. When a cool rain falls, what's within blurs. For years, I've lived on a floodplain where my house is endangered. Stay, I say to myself, knowing the smallest slip can trigger it. Tick-tock, and I'm drowning. All signposts submerged. My door about to swing off its frame. What calls me to emerge, I can't tell. A daffodil, one iris, no promises kept. But emergencies for the moment are past. In ancient Greece, in the temple of Apollo, the gods created a sacred space around the Omphale stone, navel at the core of their world, Axis Mundi. Now, as if to an altar they come, mournful strangers in procession, wheeling one around another, before I recognize her and her in the chorus forming near me. Jane, who was Ursula's mother. Denise, who was John's. Among those I can't name, their numbers swelling. They hold out photos, clasp rings, medical IDs, a child's plastic barrette shaped like a rose. Everyday offerings to hang on our tree. These memorials to children they've lost, and tokens too, I want to believe, of empathy borne toward me like gifts. 5. The contemplative promises what's cruel will in time turn merciful. When I was young, I wrote of what befalls us, sensing they were inseparable, being and falling. How little I really understood of the puzzle, though, until my son, who was ill, tumbled through the dark, spilling himself. Slim as a candle's flame, guttering the little breath still in him. For a month, I kept vigil, waiting for him to stir in the penumbral dusk of a hospital room, unable to say what I hoped for. Delusional for years, he was the captive of a will apart from his own, his troubles ones I tried to, but couldn't untangle. And then it was April. Friends would call it a miracle, maybe. All I know is my gentle child has returned to me. He smiles now and can love. I am grateful that increasingly between two verticals I see a fragile gossamer bridging them. A spectral web, invented or real, trembles between the jonquils and daylilies, the purple hyacinths, hummingbird and honeysuckle, any pair of tendrils, and life in the middle fills. 6. The path out is identical to the path in, and yet, though I'm retracing my steps, nothing looks the same. Union, the faithful call this stage. To forget myself, to unself, I listen for honeybees in the baby's breath, November's geese in their noisy migrations. The skin of mine, what I'd escape if I could follow the formations of another species, the figure eights the bees make, geese in their V's. Instead, I dream I'm shadowing Dante to hell's circles, the steps of purgatory and the spheres of his paradise before losing him in the Milky Way that's home to us, the spira mirabilis that coils galaxies and cyclones as it curls the pearly nautilus. These days, nothing seems random. Oh, we say together, when we nearly collide, two women circumnavigating the labyrinth, sleepwalkers, each in our separate trance. We apologize, half smile, and turn aside to let the other pass. And though I can't rest as geese can in the updraft of another's wings, thanks is what I feel for a companion, where snowfall, bird song, branch and drizzle, in all its figurations, what glimmers in my going.